So, worldview matters, right? Our daily lives, the decisions we make every single day, the big, the small, they all depend on philosophy. You've got big government versus small government. You've got civil rights versus the rights of conscience. You have views on whose rights win out. Is it a woman or an unborn child? I mean, our collective opinions influence our overarching philosophy. And in the case of political parties, it's pretty common sense. We generally choose the party with which we have the most agreement, right? I mean, that's just how it goes. But there's something remarkable that happens, and it's really kind of baffling to me. It's this weird reaction that you predictably get when you start to discuss God and faith in politics. The questions of origins, of purpose, of accountability to a higher power. I mean, these are arguably the most essential things, not in politics necessarily, but in the entirety of the human experience. But they're somehow treated as disposable, or as though they're unimportant when it comes to politics. When you start to talk about their importance in worldview in politics, people will say, oh, it's the separation of church and state, and they'll say it as though it was explicitly meant to be codified and to translate into some sort of scenario in which every other worldview but faith deserves a seat at the table, and that is not how it was meant to be. When I think about the collective of everything we believe and think, it's generally really built on our answers to some key questions, right? The first question is there a God? Then you ask yourself, am I accountable to that God? Do I have to follow his rules, or do I get to make my own? Do I get to embrace a truth that is eternal, or do I get to kind of play with Plato and make up my own version of reality and morality? I mean, these are the questions that matter on every single level. So when I found myself looking through the 2020 Democratic Party platform, I was really interested to see that the word God is only mentioned one time. I found it intriguing, and I went on Twitter and I tweeted about it. And I noted that God-given potential was the only place I noticed God, right, in that platform. And people started shooting back at me and saying things like, hey, this isn't a theocracy, and it's not a church. They don't need to have God in there. And, all sorts of reactions like that. And I thought that that was really interesting. Again, that word theocracy. And so sure, listen, a political party isn't a church, but a platform is an official manifesto of a worldview, right? It's a comprehensive list of what matters to both Democrats and Republicans, why it matters, and how the parties plan to actually handle important issues. These are issues of life and death and everything in between. So when I look back at 2012, this is interesting. Commentator S.E. Cupp, who's now a CNN host, she famously said, and she's an atheist by the way, that she would never vote for an atheist for president. And so she followed that up with some comments and explanations, and I want to read one of her quotes. She said, I like religion being a check and knowing that my president goes home every night addressing someone above him and not thinking that all the power resides right here. Atheists don't have that. So when I heard that, I thought, man, this is really interesting. You don't have to agree with it, but it's thought-provoking, this idea that a politician or a party would see a moral framework above itself. Now, this is not an attack on atheists. My point here is that worldview absolutely matters, and pointing out the fact that the Democratic Party has really struggled with faith, so much so that they're actually debating and fighting publicly about removing God, again, from their platform and their mantra, and they continue to waffle in this arena. I think that's fair game to discuss. Listen, I'm not here to defend the GOP because nobody is perfect, and there are issues in the GOP platform as well. They do coincidentally mention God a little bit more, but at the end of the day, if God is not at the center of your worldview, who is? Is it me? Is it you? Who defines what is right or wrong? I think that that's a really important question, and I know that this is not to say that atheists can't be moral. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying, though, is who is at the center of your worldview? Right? What is that morality? Is it just fluid? Does it change? Does it move? Or is it fixed? When we have a God, we have a fixed platform of morality. And I think when we push God to the side, when we decide we don't need him, when we pretend that eternal law should play no role in our worldview, we're actually building a platform on moral quicksand. And listen, that never, ever ends well.